Welcome to Cut the BS with Holly and Rachel.
We are here to help you ditch the overwhelm, stop second guessing, and reconnect with what truly fuels your body, your mind, and your life.
No fluff, no filters, just real talk that helps you feel strong, aligned, and unstoppable. Whether you're on a walk, commuting, or sipping your favorite matcha, this is your space.
Welcome back to another episode of Cut the BS with Holly and Rachel. Today we are going to be cutting through the BS of nutrition and what are macros, some nutrition myths that we hear quite often, and then we're going to teach you sustainable ways to build a plate. So how can we actually feel satisfied after we're finished with a meal and not feel like we need to go grab a little sweet treat? I'm Holly. With me is my lovely co-host.
My name is Rachel, aka Ray Ray, aka Bon Bon. You guys have heard it before, you'll hear it again. Grab your forks and knives, everybody, because we're going to take those knives and we're going to cut through the bullshit of dieting, nutrition. Nutrition is the biggest piece. We know that 80% of weight loss, weight gain, or maintenance comes from nutrition. Obviously, that other 20% movement plays a role and is very important. But abs are made in the kitchen, everybody. Are they overrated? Depends on who you ask. So we're going to be doing a 3-part series about nutrition because there are so many things to talk about. We cannot fit it into 30 minutes because we are professional yappers.
Sue us.
We cannot do it in 30 minutes. Yes. Mm-hmm. So we're going to do a 3-part series. We're really going to break down the different pieces of nutrition. Now, disclaimer, we are not registered dietitians. However, we have been thoroughly educated on the topics of nutrition, and we practice these things daily. We're giving you guys a lot of information of what we do, what we encourage our clients to do. A lot of these things that we're going to talk to you about works, and you can go look for the research yourself to back it up.
So within this 3-part series, like Rachel said, today we're going to talk about, the truth about macros, some myths that we commonly hear, and then also how to build a plate so that you feel good and you've got a well-rounded plate in front of you at each meal. Mm-hmm. Only makes sense that we start with talking about macros before we really dive into too much of it. That way, throughout the whole series, that when we're talking about a well-balanced plate, that it is going to always, with us, include a protein, a carb, and a fat, and some fiber in there.
Oh, yes. Snaps for the fiber.
Yes. And like Rachel said, doing your own research and also learning from your own body is always going to be the best with nutrition. We can sit here and tell you how to build a plate, but you know your body and you know how your body responds to certain macros and certain foods best. So sometimes all we can do is give you a little bit of information, and then you take that and you implement it and learn based on how your body is responding. So with that said, let's jump into talking about macros. What are they? And most importantly, why we need, say it with me, every single macro.
Every single macro. Yeah. So a lot of people, when they hear the word or the term macro, they're like, what? They don't know what it is. And that's fair. Macro stands for macronutrient. There are 3 macronutrients: protein, carbohydrates, and fats. And so a lot of you might be asking, okay, well, I've heard of those terms, but why are we talking about those when we're talking about nutrition? Well, everything that you eat has a certain number of proteins, carbs, and fats. Calories are great. Ultimately, your macros, add it all together, there's a couple of equations in there, ends up being how many calories you're consuming. And the reason that we focus more on macronutrients versus just the calorie number is because quality versus quantity, right? I can take in 2,000 calories today and it be full of lots of whole foods, fruits, vegetables, meats, and I'm full. I'm satisfied the whole day. Holly could take in 2,000 calories of Starbucks drinks and feel like absolute crap and be really hungry and not satisfied. So, calories don't really give it the quality and how much those calories are worth, but macronutrients are going to give you more detail on what's in your food.
I think the biggest thing is like just remembering that it's called a macro for a reason because we need a large quantity of them. They are all very, very beneficial for different reasons. They all serve different functions to our bodies.
And this is something that I've personally seen trending. It's probably just my algorithm, but they talk about how calories are going to determine, like how many calories you're consuming are going to determine your weight. If you're in a caloric surplus, which means you're taking in more calories than your body needs, you're going to gain weight. If you're taking in the same amount of calories that your body uses, you're going to maintain. And if you're in a calorie deficit, which I'm sure a lot of people have heard all over social media, or at least I do, again, probably my algorithm, the calorie deficit is going to be where you lose weight. The macronutrients are going to determine your body's composition. So your muscle to fat ratio, which is important, right? Because you can take two women that both weigh 150 pounds and they can look completely different because of their muscle fat ratio or how active they are and what their macronutrients that they're consuming. And then the micronutrients determines how you feel. So that's your vitamins, your minerals, things like that. And we will talk about that a little later in our series. But that's something that's important. Like they all matter, but knowing that the macronutrients are going to determine that composition is important.
Right. And that's why I think knowing how to build a plate based off of your goals, which will be a little bit of episode 2, is like how to, cater your nutrition to your goals. But just knowing how to build a plate can be really beneficial in how you feel. And if looks is something that you care about, which most of us do a little bit, knowledge is power, right? Like,
Absolutely.
knowledge is absolutely always going to be the number one thing.
So we've talked about what macronutrients are: protein, carbohydrates, and fats. So let's talk a little bit about each macronutrient just to give the audience a little bit of information of what the role of each macronutrient has in our bodies. Now, again, we're going to give our Spark Notes version. We're not going to give you Webster definition because
Ain't nobody got time for that, right? Like, we're here to break it down real quick and easy for you. Very digestible. On the topic of nutrition.
Pun intended. Let's talk about the devil in the room. Holly, tell us a little bit about carbs. Carbs are often demonized. I hear in the social space a lot of like low carb, no carb, etc. But let's talk about what the role of carbs are in our body and why they're important.
Yeah. So, like you said, carbs come in many different forms. Like you were talking about the difference in whole foods versus just Starbucks making up your calories. Mm-hmm. There's different forms of carbs, and carbs are our body's preferred source of energy. Our body is going to want to pull, when we are exerting energy, it wants to pull from our carb storage.
Anytime we're exerting a lot of energy, whether you're running, whether you're walking, whether you're lifting weights, which girlies, you should be doing, carbs are going to be what your body pulls from because your body can break it down quicker and use it for energy so that you have fuel, you feel fueled, and you don't feel like lethargic and weak and meh. There are many different forms of carbs. Carbs, in other words, it's sugar. And so your body will break these carb sources down into sugar and use them for energy. The way I like to describe it to people, if they're like, well, you're saying a lot of things, but I don't really know what you're saying. There are two types of carbs. There are complex carbs and simple carbs. Complex carbs, imagine them like this, right? Complex carbs can be a sweet potato, a regular potato, oats, things that just aren't super refined, basically. Complex carbs, the body has to really work hard to break it apart and use it for energy. So it's going to last a little longer. It's going to be a little more satiating. Simple carbs, think honey, think really, really sugary things, refined things, rice. They are not as wound tight, so it's going to be really easy for the body to break them apart and use them for energy. So if you're in the middle of the workout and you're feeling a little like fatigued, grab some gummy bears, okay? It'll give you some quick carbs and you can be on your merry way. If you're eating 3 hours before a workout, have a sweet potato, let the body do its thing with the sweet potato, and it can be used for energy later.
Yeah. And for anybody who wasn't watching, so think of like a clenched fist versus like maybe like a more slightly opened fist for like, so clenched fist would be like your complex carbs, and then slightly opened, a little bit more like willy-nilly, if you will, as your simple carbs. Easier to break down, easier to just be quick energy, like she said. Again, there's a time and a place for both, right? Mm-hmm. And you're going to feel a different way depending on what you're consuming, especially if, you're consuming more complex carbs just as a whole in your diet compared to more of those simple carbs in your diet. Simple carbs also, not us saying we were going to give a quick spiel. Simple carbs also, you're going to find yourself more hungry sooner. Whereas with complex carbs, because it takes longer to digest and to break down and gives us like extended energy, it's going to keep you more satisfied for a longer period of time, especially depending on what you're pairing it with as you're building your plate.
And if you don't know what carbs are by now, then there's no hope for you because we just really dove in there to let you know. So there's a long-winded version of what carbs are. Let's talk a little bit about protein. Man, protein is very heavily marketed right now. You've got the carnivore diet that people are really taking hold of and running with, which we'll talk about that in a moment. Protein in everything. Everything is a protein. It's marketed for protein, which we'll also talk about how marketing is playing a role. We're going to talk about it all, okay? But Holly, tell me what is protein?
Protein helps with our hormone health, which shout out to us ladies. We definitely have to prioritize that. So it helps with having healthy hormones, and we really need healthy hormones for a healthy body all around. And then it also helps with building or just maintaining our lean muscle mass, which again, as women, when we think about our longevity and our quality of life, we really want to maintain as much muscle mass as possible as we go through different hormone shifts throughout our life.
Mm-hmm. Protein plays a huge role. And for those of you girlies who are resistance training, who are trying to build muscle, there are lots of factors that help in the repairing of those muscles. A big one is protein. Obviously, you've got your sleep, your water, that play a role as well. But protein is a huge piece of that, of repairing the muscle. Because anytime you go into the gym, you're breaking down your muscles, you're creating micro tears, and the protein is going to help to repair that muscle. So protein is really huge. It's also the most complex thing for the body to digest and to process. So it actually causes your body to work a little harder to process that protein, and in turn makes it very satiating. It makes you feel very satisfied if you're taking in good amounts, higher amounts of protein. Usually I recommend to my clients to take in lean proteins, but protein is protein, right? So as long as you're taking in a good amount of protein, you're going to feel more satisfied. Who wants to be hungry? Nobody. So it's a huge piece.
Yeah. And like you mentioned, like resistance training, but even for our girlies that aren't quite on the resistance training train quite yet, maybe they're still, running or yoga, Pilates, protein is going to be your friend.
Yes, agreed. Okay, yeah, that was a very quick rundown of protein. We got that one.
We've got our carbs and our protein. Next, we're going to talk about fats. Rachel, why are fats so beneficial as we make up our plate?
Man, disclaimer, fat does not make you fat. Snaps for that, because that's something that was kind of marketed a lot in the 90s and the early 2000s, is like low fat, no fat, low fat. And again, like, fat has its purpose, but fat is huge when it comes to hormonal health. And Holly talked about how important hormonal health is for us women, especially because we've got all the hormones raging all the places. But if you're not taking, this is in a previous episode when we talked about intuitive eating, and I'll say it again for the people in the back. If you're not taking in a minimum of like 60-ish grams of fat per day, you're doing the hormones in your body a disservice. So it's so important to take in fat. Fat is not the devil. There's a time and place for fat in the diet. If I could be an avocado, I would, because they're amazing. And they're also a great source of healthy fats. Fats also help with the absorption of vitamins and minerals. So rewind to earlier in this episode when we talked about how micronutrients, the vitamins and minerals that we take in, usually that are paired with a lot of the whole foods that we consume, those have a lot of vitamins and minerals, and the fat that we take in is going to help our bodies to absorb those vitamins and minerals so that we can feel amazing.
It's funny that you say you would be an avocado, because as I was telling you before we started recording, I was listening to like the podcast on cycle syncing and stuff, like just all things cycle syncing. And it was talking about foods that you compare with different like phases of your cycle. And an avocado was mentioned in every single phase. There's something like the nutrients in an avocado are so beneficial that like there's so many of them that it benefits you in every phase of your cycle. That's just so crazy to me that like one food can be so diverse, if you will.
I feel like anything green is an A+ for me, and
So true.
I will eat all the guacamole because yum. Like I like I said, if I could be an avocado, I would, because they're just amazing.
Yeah. You know how everybody's like, if you could be one form of a potato, what would you be? Is there anything other than guac that like with like avocados that people make?
Avocado toast
True.
with lime, salt, and a little bit of balsamic glaze. Ugh, 10 out of 10. Just luxury.
Do you put like an egg on top or just no?
If I'm feeling real frisky, I guess, but usually I'm not. I'm not really like. I'll eat eggs, but I'm not like, man, I love eggs. You know?
Yeah,
Eggs are just eggs for me.
that's fair. It's definitely like a side dish for me. It's like no, like I use it as the main thing sometimes, but it's not giving main thing energy.
And I'm just not an omelet girl. Like, it's just a no. Are you offended?
I'm not offended. I just
You
really
look
like it.
offended.
I just like, wow. I love a good omelet. Like you can't go wrong. Like you want bacon, you want sausage, you want tomatoes, mushrooms, peppers, onions, spinach, cheese.
Make a salad. We got off on a little tangent there. I will also say that fish,
Yeah.
another great fat source. We've got the healthy fats in fish as well. And I honestly did not start eating fish or seafood in general until I moved down to Florida, because eating seafood in a landlocked state, sus.
Can we just talk about how every time we get on here, Rachel has something to say about how great Florida is? Like, okay, I'm trapped in Kentucky. I get it.
Well, I keep trying to tell you to move down here, and it's your fault for not listening. CJ can come, I guess.
Beautiful.
You're actually being selfish by not moving down here.
I need to take one actually for the team for the future of us.
Basically, come on.
So we'll dive into some myths that we commonly hear, and these are just some that we hear. We know that there's a bajillion and five more. That could be a whole episode in and of itself, is busting nutrition only myths. And then we could do fitness, and then we could do wellness. There's so much bleh out there. So we're only going to dive into a few. So the first one that I feel like we both want to talk about is one that you mentioned earlier. Fat does not make you fat. Tell us more.
Fat does not make you fat. It's like we talked about when we talked about fat. Fat is crucial for not only helping your body to absorb vitamins and minerals, it's crucial for the production of hormones in your body, making sure all those things are regulated. If you take in too much fat, then it will be stored in your body as fat. If you take in too much of anything, it can be bad. So
Right.
balance, which might be like a cliche thing to say, and we say it a lot, but it's true. Balance in everything. So, since we know that fat doesn't make you fat, everyone is welcome for that tidbit. Sugar versus carbs. So, people will talk about, oh, that's got too much sugar in it, when they're maybe looking at a nutrition label. Holly, what's your take on sugar versus carbs?
It's all the same. We talked about the difference in complex versus simple. At the end of the day, both of those things are going to break down in your body as glucose, aka energy. So quality of food matters, but sugar versus carbs, it's all going down the same. But again, how quickly it becomes glucose is the differentiating factor.
And also, I think where that comes from, the sugar versus carb mantra that people discuss, it comes from the refined versus the unrefined. So if something is refined, that means it's broken down quite a bit. A lot of the nutrients has been removed because it's been so processed and so refined, and so then it does become that very, very simple version of the carb source, which is why it's broken down more easily, but also it's easier to overconsume because it's refined, and then you're not getting those additional nutrients that are paired with it. So if you're eating a bowl of strawberries, you're not just getting sugar or carbs. Like, you're getting all those vitamins and minerals, all the fiber. Fiber is very satiating. You're going to feel fuller after eating a bowl of strawberries. It's what's paired with it that matters, and also whether it's refined, ultra processed, all the good stuff is stripped out of it, or if it's unrefined and has a lot of things paired with it that make it better.
And you're probably not going to have that really quick energy burst and then a crash if you've got some fiber to go with your carb source, especially like something like fruit, where you've got that like in the same thing. It's also less effort. Fruit is very low effort because you're getting fiber and you're getting your carbs. We love low effort.
I'm a sucker for buying organic raspberries. I'll buy like 4 packs a week because I'm literally a little raspberry psycho. And I'll eat the whole 6 ounces, or however many ounces comes in a little pack. I don't even count it. Don't even count it. Don't track it. Don't need to. Don't care. It's a great snack, and I love them so much. So, something that I've been hearing, last myth of the day, is that people will say, oh, I feel so much better since doing the carnivore diet, or I feel so much better since doing the keto diet, or whatever, insert diet. And while you do probably feel better, I don't think that you would lie about that. No wonder you feel better, because you're eating whole foods now. You've eliminated all the processed crap that you've been eating, and you're eating whole foods now that come from the earth. And it's not because you eliminated an entire macronutrient from your diet and that's why you feel better. You feel better because you're getting more vitamins and minerals.
Right. And I like with the keto that I see a lot, you're including more protein because that's protein and fat are the only two groups you have as an option. And like we said earlier, with protein, you're going to feel more satisfied. So, of course, you feel like you can go longer between your meals because you actually can, because you're getting more bang for your buck, if you will, with protein.
So, again, the reason that we don't support these things is because if you can't do it for the rest of your life, there's no point in doing it in the first place. If you cannot sustain something forever, let's say you do it, yeah, you lose weight, yeah, you see the scale drop, things like that, but what happens when you stop doing it? You're not going to stay there unless you make additional changes that are sustainable afterwards.
And also, what is the point, in my opinion, of pouring so much time and energy and effort and learning into these diets if it's not sustainable, when you could spend that same energy, time, effort into learning a sustainable approach?
Sustainability is huge. And I will say that we're not saying everyone needs to follow the same plan and the same sustainable way of living. Everyone has different goals, everyone has different lifestyles. And depending on what your activity level is, what kind of climate you live in, like that's going to determine what is optimal for you when it comes to diet. But at the end of the day, whole foods is the way to go. However
Right.
you mix and match that. We're going to talk about building our plate and how to mix and match it in a sustainable, repeatable way, but
Yeah.
that's the goal.
And I think, like, to kind of transition there, the reason that we don't love these, aside from being unsustainable, is because we know that there's a way to include all of these macros in a sustainable way by learning how to build out your plate, where you're getting all of the things that you need.
Building a plate, we always include all the macronutrients. We include protein, fats, carbs, and we also kind of add in that micronutrient of fiber because fiber is so satiating. It's going to make you feel satisfied and full. Also aids greatly with digestion, which is a direct correlation to your health. For me, I usually weigh out 8 ounces of whatever protein I'm doing, usually lean meat. So about half my plate is going to be protein. A quarter of my plate is going to be a carb, whether that's rice, whether that's potatoes. I'm a real big potato girl. Potatoes really just feed not only my stomach, but my soul.
I think that's the
And
Kentucky in you. That's the Eastern Kentucky in you. It has to be.
maybe so. I just love potatoes. Ugh. I like potatoes also in comparison to rice because potatoes are more volume.
Yeah.
Fiber is usually in the form of veggies for me. Do I sometimes want to leave those veggies on the plate? Yes, because I am human. Okay. But it's usually broccoli. We do frozen veggies and we just pop them in the microwave or pop them in a pot of boiling water. Broccoli, green beans, mixed veggies, sometimes zucchini. If I'm feeling, I'll saute them with some salt. But yeah, I usually do like quarter carb, quarter veggie, and then half of my plate is a lean meat. What about you?
Mine is pretty much the same. Like, going back to the rice thing, when I have that craving for rice or like just like a bowl of some sort, like a rice bowl, I include more veggies to help get more vitamins and minerals and fiber and stuff like that. So if I'm going to use rice, it's typically in the form of like a bowl. So it's really just a base, and then I'm adding fiber and fats from there. I'm just now getting on the avocado train, which, shout out to me for finally liking it. I'm so proud of myself.
So am I.
Thank you. So that's lately kind of been an easy fat source for me. But before that, I was leaning into like a lot of like sauces for my fats in my meals.
Okay.
It's an easier way to get fats, especially when you're kind of picky with avocados and whatnot. But then you can also opt for, like Rachel said, like some of your meat's going to have some fats. So that's sometimes, like if I'm eating ground beef, easy fat source right there. And I typically go for like 90-10 or sometimes like a 93-7 for my Ground beef. Keep it simple, keep it
Oh,
basic.
yeah. I can't do the 85-15 beef anymore.
Does it make you feel like shit?
Yes, and also I feel like I've layered my mouth with a layer of fat. Like I feel like that's what I feel like doing.
Like it tastes good for
It's
the
just a
few
no for
first
me.
few bites, and then you're like,
Yeah.
ugh. So Rachel, since you've got some knowledge and some background on like the tracking side of things, obviously not everybody has the capacity or even wants to track. What would you say if somebody doesn't want to track, knowing what you know about tracking, and sometimes you don't track, how would you give advice for someone who doesn't want to track their food?
Well, I've said this before. I think everyone should track for, like, even if it's a week. If it's just a week and you have your normal week, track that to see where your baselines are, because that information is important. And then after that, if you never want to track again, never track again. Um, but I know that something that I've done, and again, I've kind of intermittently tracked because I'm taking a longer, like I've said that I'm in an intermittent cutting phase. You can really call that a recomposition phase because I am trying to recompose my body, less fat, more muscle. Um, but I've learned with tracking, and for anyone out there that wants to do it for a week, or maybe they've already done it for a week, I have learned that for me, I know if I'm not tracking at all, I still use my food scale just so that I know I'm getting enough protein, because sometimes getting enough protein is hard for me. I know that 8 ounces of chicken is good for a meal for me. 8 ounces of the lean ground beef, 8 ounces of ground turkey. Those are kind of some staples that we do in our household. I know if I'm doing fish, I personally don't do fish warmed up because that freaks me out for whatever reason. But when we have it for dinner, I usually do anywhere from 9 to 11 ounces, which now that I'm saying it out loud, sounds like so much. But fish is so light that I
Yeah.
feel like I can eat more of it and it's fine. So I usually do 9 to 11 ounces of fish. And I've learned, through the tracking that those are good amounts for me. So I don't have to track how many calories in it, and I don't even memorize how many calories it is or how many, like, what the macros are. But I know that that's good for me. And then additionally, I know that when I'm doing a carb, I've measured out all the carbs that we typically consume in our household, so I know what's good for me. Again, for me, I do a half a cup of rice. Sometimes if I had just if I'm about to have a really heavy training session, or if I am about to play volleyball for 3 hours, then I'll do like 3/4 of a cup of rice. But usually go between those. And then for potatoes, I know that anywhere from 165 grams to 185 grams in weight. I know those are all very specific, but it's because I've learned through tracking what I do. I don't measure vegetables. I don't measure fruit. I usually just do one serving size of a sauce. Um, I'll measure out like calorie dense things like peanut butter, almond butter. Those things are very calorie dense, so I will measure those out. And I'll measure out like milk in my coffee because it's calorie dense. But other than that, free for all.
So it sounds like there's benefit in having a food scale even if you don't want to track. Even
Yeah,
if it's
absolutely.
just learning. And even if you never open a tracking app, having a food scale and for a week just looking at how much you're having and saying at the end, reflecting and saying that 6 ounces of meat and 165 grams of potato, that was good. Or maybe tomorrow I can try another ounce of meat and see where I land in like satisfaction from my meal.
Yeah.
Just knowing how much you're getting instead of playing a guessing game can go really far in satisfaction, in meeting your goals, those sorts of things.
Yeah, because all the guessing adds up to a big guess,
Yeah.
is what I tell a lot of my clients. And additionally, not all chicken breasts are made the same. You've got your 4-ounce chicken breasts, you've got your 8-ounce chicken breasts. That's the difference between half the protein and double the protein.
Yeah.
So those things definitely matter. So obviously we've talked about what our plates typically look like. I still use a food scale even when I'm not tracking because, again, information junkie. I like to know, and it's a control thing probably. But, well, let's be honest. Also, there are things that I know Holly and I both have learned in school, and we've offered these to clients who want to try it. I personally don't do this. Holly, I know that you don't as well. It's just the hand sizing guide that people use. So basically, like, your palm should be how big your piece of protein is. A clenched fist is typically a 1 cup serving. The thumb is supposed to be how much is fat you should use. What else? Things like that. It's like the hand size guide. I'm never going to use that. I don't really. It's a no. I'm not going to hold my fist I'm not going to hold my palm next to a piece of chicken.
Yeah.
I'm just not. Now, for anyone out there that wants to hold their palm next to a piece of chicken to see if it's a good portion size, be my guest. Lots of chickens are pumped full of a bunch of growth hormones, and so they're probably the size of your actual head, but that's besides the point.
Yeah. And, like, also, if you're going to go through that effort, I would just personally, while I still don't like measuring cups without a scale, because measuring cups and what they say is the serving size of 1 cup of rice often tends to be more than the actual grams of rice. That's a whole nother tangent, though. I'd rather you go with the measuring cup than your hand.
Scoop it
Any
out.
day. Yeah.
So we just wanted to throw that in there for those of you that might like that or prefer that. Be our guest. Whatever works for you, keep doing it.
So as we wrap up episode 1 today, I think the biggest takeaway that Rachel and I want you to take away is that, just like every other episode, nothing has to be perfect. It just needs to be balanced and fit into your life. That said, every macro serves a purpose, mostly for our hormone health, or our brain function, or our muscle growth, or maintenance. Whatever it may be, all of the macros matter. In learning how to build out a plate that works for you and your body, keeps you full for extended periods of time, doesn't have you thinking about food 30 minutes to an hour later, is ultimately the goal. Whatever way you find balance in that, do it.
And that was part 1 of 3 of our nutrition series here on Cut the BS. So next time we will be continuing and talking about applying nutrition to your specific goals, because not any one of us are the same. And so understanding what your goals are and how to kind of individualize your nutrition for you is going to be important. Holly and I both are going to share what we do in detail and how we manage it. And we're hoping that that will then give you some information of how you can manage it for you. And that's a wrap on this episode of Cut the BS with Holly and Rachel. If today gave you a dose of clarity, confidence, or even just a good laugh, we've done our job.
Don't forget, wellness isn't about doing more. It's about doing what actually works for you. So take what hit home, leave the rest, and keep showing up as your strongest, realest self.
Be sure to follow, rate, and share this episode with someone who's ready to cut the BS and live with more intention. Until next time.